Today the biggest news comes from the Kherson region. Here, Ukrainians continue conducting amphibious operations on the Dnipro River with the goal of developing a bridgehead on the other side of the river, while Russian defense is still weak in the aftermath of the destruction of many Russian fortifications due to flooding. Geolocated footage shows that day after day, Ukrainians are successfully reinforcing the assault group, and if yesterday Russian sources reported that there were up to 50 Ukrainian soldiers in the region, then today this number increased to 100. At first, Russians tried to use their aviation to bomb the residential area, and especially the bridge, which Ukrainians are using as their main fortification and shelter. However, the usage of aviation proved to be extremely problematic. First of all, the munitions are not very precise, which requires more airstrikes or getting closer to the contact line. And this is impossible because, secondly, Russian sources reported that Ukrainians had redeployed multiple S-300 air defense systems to the towns and villages in the vicinity of this bridgehead. Some Russian fighters also complained that they could not even use drones due to the fact that they lost connection half the way towards the bridge because Ukrainians put somewhere electronic warfare systems. That is why if Russians wanted to eliminate the enemy bridgehead, they needed to conduct direct ground assaults. The first Russians assault group tried to use armored fighting vehicles to deliver the assault units directly to the Ukrainian positions. This did not work very well because Ukrainians had mined the approach to the bridge, so the vehicle got immobilized by the mine, and Russians immediately ran away in all possible directions. Next, Russians decided to take it into account and drive not all the way to the bridge, but just to the first houses. Russian forces used 3 armored personnel carriers to deliver 3 assault squads, 30 troops in total. Ukrainian reconnaissance drone operators spotted the movement of Russian troops and immediately communicated their coordinates to the Ukrainian artillery crews. Shortly, the artillery hit the area of the deployment of the Russian troops, inflicting significant losses and putting an end to the planned assault. The remaining Russian troops dissipated throughout the region and requested support and evacuation. Unfortunately for Russians, the coordination and communication between the assault units were non-existent in the aftermath of the artillery strike. So, when the first Russian group that assumed positions in the forest noticed movement in the residential area, they assumed that this was a Ukrainian counterattack and opened fire at the second group of Russians in the houses. When the support arrived, the Russian armored fighting vehicle advanced while simultaneously firing precisely at the houses with the Russian airborne unit. The armored fighting vehicle picked up several wounded soldiers from the other group and drove away. Judging by the footage, the machine gun fire fired through all the houses along the road. Given the caliber of the gun, the brick walls of the houses provided as much protection as paper, so Russian forces who successfully got a toehold in the residential area likely suffered heavy losses due to the friendly fire. Overall, Russian forces proved to be incapable of controlling the islands. Even though they had a paved road leading right to the residential area, Ukrainians took it under total fire control, not allowing Russians to deliver supplies or rotate troops. Russian sources reported that using small high-speed boats proved to be extremely effective for the purpose of controlling the river because they were extremely mobile and an impossible target for the Russian artillery. The only real danger for the Ukrainian boat crews is Russian troops near the river. With that in mind, we can see that by pushing Russians from these small islands and residential areas, Ukrainians are gradually gaining complete freedom of movement on the river, even without controlling the other bank. Russians analysts are warning that once Ukrainians push Russians to the mainland, Ukrainians will start looking for a weak spot, and given the length of the front line, the probability that Ukrainians will find one is extremely high.